Welcome to Margins and Mandates, the show where plays, pivots, and pressure-tested leadership take center stage. I'm your host, Jeff Lortz, former operator, advisor, and founder of the Agile Operator. Today my guest is Ed Gaudet, founder and CEO of Censinet. Censinet is a healthcare-only governance, risk, and compliance platform. They started in third-party risk management, expanded into enterprise risk and compliance with 100% focus on the healthcare ecosystem. In this conversation, Ed walks through how Censinet got started, raising capital early, building V1 with design partners, and turning customer collaboration into a core operating system. We dig into one of Ed's strongest convictions, this no playbook for the next thing, and why running a standard playbook can quietly constrain how you define success. We also cover growth through disruption, launching the company in March of 2020, navigating post-pandemic aftershocks, and the decisions those moments forced. And we close, as always, with AI. Treating it as infrastructure, building it in from day one, and making secure by design and secure by default non-negotiable. Let's get into it.
Ed, thanks for joining the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm good, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Great. I'm looking forward to talking today since we first met. I really am looking forward to hearing your story and hearing the things that you have done with Censinet and what your plans are for the
Yeah,
future. But
sure.
first, I want to talk a little bit about your hobby. I don't know if it's a hobby or a side gig, but you're a poet.
Oh
So
boy, we're
tell
gonna
me
get right
about
into that. Okay. I see where you're going here, Jeff.
that.
Yeah, I've been writing. I'm a writer by trade, if you will, and I've been writing poetry since I was a kid. And I ran our literary magazine in college at Bentley University, and kept writing throughout my career. And in 2020, during the pandemic, I had a little more time because I wasn't commuting.
hmm
And so I began to dedicate more time to the vocation. And I also quit drinking. So 4 years sober, as of this
Right.
past December. And that really had a lot to do with the quite frankly, the quality of the writing, etc. And I started to get it published. And I just got I just got picked up in another literary journal this week. So,
Wow, congratulations.
yeah, I'm pretty, and I have someone that helps me out. So it's hard to run a full-time company and be an active poet. So, if my board's listening, I'm not spending a lot of time writing poetry. I just want you all to know.
Okay, so it's still a hobby, not a
Yeah.
side hustle. We'll keep it
Yeah,
in that
no, it's not a
category.
side house. It might be some at some point. Like for example, I've joined a couple local communities. We do readings every month. I've got a reading on Sunday in Plymouth, Mass. But yeah, it's good. It just, again, I've got that dual brain, right?
hmm
And I need to feed both the left and the right side.
Yep.
And poetry allows me to do that. And it keeps me creative too, highly functionally creative as well, which is good for business, I think.
So you're a serial entrepreneur founder, and your current company is Censinet. And give us a little bit of idea of the size and scope of Censinet today and what it does.
Yeah, so Sensinet, we're focused on third-party risk management. That's how we started out, and then we've expanded into GRC. So that includes things like governance, risk, obviously third-party risk, but also enterprise risk
Mhm.
and general compliance. And we do that in healthcare, so exclusively focused on healthcare, which is a big industry in and of itself. If you've never done healthcare, or if you think you've done healthcare because you have sort of a vertical slice on your
Mhm.
website that says healthcare, when you're all in healthcare, it's very different. And it is big enough to support going all in. Multiple subsegments. You've got your payers, providers, pharmaceutical, life sciences organizations. You have your device manufacturers. You have all the vendors, the ecosystem of third parties that support the healthcare environments. You have your post and you have your acute care facilities as well. Everything from your hospitals, your health systems, all the way down to your skilled nursing facilities, your hospice centers.
So is the entire ecosystem within your target market, or is it just the providers and you're helping to support
Yeah,
the providers
yeah.
ecosystem?
It's a good point. So directly we focus on the providers, so the health systems and the hospitals. We do have started to move into payers. We have a couple payers
Mm,
as customers now, which is exciting. But that whole third party ecosystem is also part of our target market in so much as the way we've developed our approach to solving the problem. We've created what's now today a multi-sided network, but started off as a two-sided network connecting the health systems, the hospitals, with their ecosystem of third parties.
okay.
And it's a true marketplace too. So there's really incredible leverage the community gets from our approach versus these other approaches that are out there.
So are you by definition then, because you're in sort of a regulatory environment, just US based, or are there
We
opportunities for you to sell internationally as well?
Uh, yes and yes. So we are focused on U.S. based health systems. Obviously, if a third party is a global third party or
Mm,
located internationally, they still may be in the network. They still maybe in our platform because
okay.
they're working with the third part the provider to provide third party goods or services to them.
Okay. So what brings a person to decide to start a healthcare GRC risk management software company?
Yeah, that's a long, strange trip, as they say. So I was finishing up with a previous company in healthcare called Improvata, and they we went all in healthcare there. So I wrote the market entry thesis, I ran products for them initially, and brought them into healthcare, took them public. I drafted the S1, did all the ground behind the scenes work of getting
Hmm.
that company to a place and supporting the CEO and the management and leadership team to bring them into healthcare. And I had never done healthcare prior to that. So it was exciting for me because so much I thought I knew, I just did not know about healthcare. And so many things I learned stayed with me. And the biggest thing is this notion of shared mission, being able to sit on the same side of the table as your customer. Everybody knows and understands healthcare. Everyone's had experience in healthcare. Everyone has had a loved one or a friend or someone they know that's experienced healthcare, the good, the bad, the ugly of healthcare.
Hmm.
And so it's really a different mission. And it's much more visceral and much more connected to everything that happens within your workday, but also outside of your workday. I like to say that when I got into a healthcare company, I could actually tell my mother what I did, and she understood it.
Mm.
Now, the challenge with that is every time she went to the hospital, she'd say, "Oh, my son did this or created this," which was somewhat true, but not always true, right? So I did not create Epic, Mom. Come on.
Yeah. Well, you went up on me. My mother would never been able to tell anybody what I've ever done
Yeah.
in my entire
No,
career.
well, that was my case. That was the case for the previous nine other companies, right?
Yep.
You didn't understand any that my parents never understood any of it. But once I got into healthcare, then she got it. So when I tried my hand at retirement briefly. My wife had other plans, cordially commanding me back into the workplace because like every retired person, you start to go and you follow the things you love. And I started going off and following these guys around and writing more poetry and right.
Mm,
And she's like, "What are you doing at home?" Where my job had taken me, on the road, a large percentage of the time. So all of a sudden I'm home, I'm going to concerts, I'm causing trouble,
mm,
go back to work. So I thought about, the problems that I was facing in the prior company, looked at what market trends were out there, and I saw an opportunity to really solve the third party risk management problem initially. And as it turns out, it's a risk management in general was a much bigger problem for our customers. And the other dimension of our mission or vision, if you will, is community leverage is one piece of that, one dimension of
mm,
it. The other is community led. And so by partnering, because of those rich partnerships you develop over time with healthcare,
mhm,
it doesn't really happen in any other industry because you don't have that shared mission, right? um, they start to bring you places. They start to open up and say, "Hey, you know what you've done here for us? Could you do it over there for us?"
mhm,
And that really starts to drive expansion opportunities. It drives expansion of overall strategy and how you think about the problem that you initially started solving and then the problem that you could solve, right? So this as is state, which all looks great and it's big enough, but this to be state actually is connected, and
mhm,
and and there's
mhm,
a path to get there. And if you connect with your customers, in a collaborative way, they're going to bring you there. And I always laugh at product people that say, "Oh, customers don't know what they want." They know what they want. You're just not listening to what they want. You're not
Mhm.
hearing them. And I think that's so important. One of the things I learned early on in my career is customers do know what they want. You just have to ask the right set of questions and you have to listen to what
Mhm.
they're saying.
Mhm. So did you take the traditional path, which is you found sort of a lighthouse customer, sort of co-developed with them to create a solution that made sense, or like what was the sort of the initial kind of steps that you took, right, as you kind of started this
Yeah.
enterprise?
Well, to be honest, there's a lot of details behind that, but what I was trying to do is extend my retirement. To be my wife isn't listening to this, so I partnered up with another co-founder. I call him a co-founder, because at the time he
Hmm.
had a similar idea, and he wanted to partner with somebody to basically take it to market. And so but he was also transitioning into an investment role and to become a VC partner. And so it was a great opportunity for us to come together and take this idea, and instead of starting it without any capital, fund it correctly in a way that could get us to market quickly. So we did
Okay.
that, which I thought was a good approach. It was certainly a different model. I'd never done that before, and there
Mm.
were a lot of lessons learned about that. But in generally speaking, I was able to sort of take my time coming into the new process of developing products again,
Mm.
thinking through customer problems and issues. And so, to your question about one customer, no, I actually had a portfolio of relationships that I approached, and he did as well. And so I began to reach out to those people, and I created a design program basically.
Okay.
And I said, "Hey, join my design. First of all, validate the problem, right? I understand the problem from the vendor side because I was a vendor, and I actually had the pain of having to manage the problem. What's it? Do you have the same problem, and what's it look like?" And every provider I talked to said, "Yep, we've got the same problem, but it's a little different. Come on in, we'll talk to you." So signed them up for the design program, got all of their pain codified, all of the workflows, things that were working, not working, and took the patterns and used that as the basis for V1 of the product. So
Okay. No, that's interesting. So you were able to raise capital with an idea. Um,
yeah, yeah,
and how long ago was that?
17.
Okay. Do you think that's
Yeah.
possible today?
Yeah, yeah, I do think it's possible today. I think anyone can start a company and raise capital with an idea. And it really depends on a couple things. What's your what what's your appetite for giving up control of your company or your idea, right?
Hmm.
Eventually, it's the odds are that every startup is going to fail. I mean, that's what the data shows, right? Now,
Hmm.
some succeed, right? Very few of them succeed self-funded, bootstrapped, right?
Hmm.
Now, success is by definition in the eye of the beholder, right? So you could have a lifestyle company that you've bootstrapped and you're doing fine, and that's success, right? You could have, chat GPT, you can have open AI, and that's success, right? And there's different degrees of that success, right? And everyone's path is a little different. I will tell you this. One thing I learned early on in my journey is that, and I live this principle to this day. There's no playbook for the next thing. It just doesn't exist. If you think it exists, you've already failed. You have to figure out. You can't just take the playbook from the last company or the previous companies and say, "Oh, all right, well, here's sales, here's marketing, here's what we're going to do for services, here's what we're going to do for product." It just, in my opinion, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You have to not only innovate with the product you're delivering for customers, but you have to innovate in how you build, how you market, how you support, how you service it, etc. And I think people lose sight of that. And what you end up getting if you don't think that way, you end up hiring people that bring their own playbook. And then they put their playbook in place. And maybe that playbook was successful in the previous company, but most likely it won't be successful in this company. And so I don't know if that answers the question, but to me, that's like principle number one. What are we going to do differently? Everything is a blank sheet of paper, which is what I love, a blank page. Again, a
Hmm.
writer, right? A lot of writers fear that. I actually enjoy that. So you have an opportunity to sort of write the story. What's the story going to look like? Is it going to be based on somebody else's playbook, or is it going to be based on the playbook you need to capture success? However you define it. Again, I wouldn't judge someone's success as being lifestyle company. I'm taking profits out. I'm not growing, or I'm growing, marginally year over year. That's fine. That's success for that individual.
Hmm.
Or and OpenAI is success for that individual, right? Unicorn companies, if they truly are unicorn and stay unicorn, that's the thing. Like, can you stay and maintain
Hmm.
that promise of growth, that promise of success, right? a a an IPO is just a financing event. It's not an end all be all.
Hmm.
And the IPO in my mind doesn't matter. What matters is, what does the company look like in 10 years post IPO? That's the that's a
How are you going to
that's a
get there?
that's a good, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a good milestone for
Yeah.
success, right? But
Hmm.
it's just a milestone. Then after that, what's the 20th year post IPO look like, right?
Hmm.
And you have to sort of keep thinking and moving forward. You can't live in the past, certainly in your life, but also you can be reflective,
Yeah.
but you have to continue to move forward on these things. So that's how I kind of approach it.
I mean, I'm fascinated by your the way you sort of couch the playbook, right? I mean, the ecosystem, and in fact, I'm building an advisory business around sharing playbooks, right, and sharing ideas, and the whole purpose of me talking to you today is to help mine, right, for ideas on how to refine playbooks, right? So a lot of investors, especially private equity investors, build their credibility around having a playbook that they can universally apply across their portfolio, right? Versus the claim that you're making, which I happen to agree with, which is a playbook has to be architected for the situation, right, and for the goals, and for and take into account who the players are, right, who are actually playing, and who the players on the field, right, and what you're trying to attain, and what your winning looks like, right, and it's there's a lot of different components, right, that you can pull off the shelf, right, that you can assemble together into a playbook. But the playbook itself has to be unique, right, in order for you to be successful. So that and dynamic, right? I don't know
Yeah,
how you think about that.
yeah, yeah. And let me sort of let me address that, because that's a good point. Um, the PE playbook, right? Because I've
Hmm.
been in that situation with the PE playbook. The PE playbook is fine. It's in light of the fact that you don't have a playbook. And I'm talking about like your playbook, right? You now are subject to somebody else's playbook. They're filling a void, they're filling a gap. And
Hmm.
that playbook could still get you, again, success, however you define it, but it's already been defined by you in that playbook. So you've constrained yourself, right? Whether you know it or not, by accepting that playbook, right? Because they're going to hold you accountable to and it's a formula, right? It's a
Yep.
spreadsheet. It's a tabbed set of spreadsheets, or
It
it's a
is.
spreadsheet with a set of tabs, right?
Yep.
And again, they run it to deliver a certain result that they have as part of their playbook. So
Hmm.
you've taken someone else's playbook, whether you know it or not. Now, again, if that's your definition of success, that's great. And eventually, someday, Censinet may be part of that, right? We may be under that playbook, and that's okay too, right? I'm just saying, from a entrepreneurial mindset, constraining yourself to someone else's playbook is not a great place to start.
Yep.
Yeah, eventually you might get there because the needs of the business, you may want to take money off the table and retire, right?
Hmm.
Finally retire, hun, if you're listening. Um, but 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 they're different, right? The entrepreneur, I think, in my opinion, has to think about everything
Yeah. Yep.
differently, because it is different. You're starting something that's never been developed before,
Hmm.
right? It's not like you're coming into a company and changing up the team and trying to do a restart. That's a totally different playbook,
Okay.
right?
So
The
you're
playbook
not so
for the entrepreneur is no playbook. That's
yeah.
the playbook.
So you're not 9-ish years in, right?
Yeah.
If you start at
Yeah.
17,
Yeah.
you started with a design committee, right, of customers,
Yeah.
and you
Not
started with
not not a committee.
or a
Committees
team.
committees are by nature timid. There's a great Dr. Porsche quote about committees, right? No, it wasn't a committee. It was a group of customer design partners, which by the way, weren't customers in the definition of the
Mhm,
canonical definition of a customer. They weren't paying us to be part of that design. And some of them eventually became paid customers and
mhm,
some didn't.
yep.
That's part of the process, right? So yeah, started with those folks to help really uncover the pain that they were feeling, help me codify that, and then stay with me along the journey in some way if they wanted to, either paid or non-paid,
Mhm,
to really continually progress and make the solution better over time. And that's that community led piece, right? Again,
mhm, mhm.
I've got a customer advisory board meeting uh either this week or next week, I forget. It might be tomorrow actually. But I do this every quarter where I invite, a handful of customers in. I usually get between, 15 and 20 customers. And first hour we go around the room and we understand their priorities. Nothing to do with Sensinet.
Mhm,
Because it's an opportunity to connect other customers together, right?
mhm,
And that's the beauty of the network. If you think about it, not only for the things you have to do, but if you actually think about it from a branding perspective, what does it mean to be a connective tissue in the industry? It means more than just sell something to somebody. It
mhm,
means about helping them with their problems, whether it's related to the product you sell, but also related to other things that they may have challenges with. And by convening and facilitating that conversation, I mean, they get so much out of that. The second hour is about things that we're thinking about building or in the process of building, and then they give us feedback on those things too.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so that's part of our DNA is that constant collaboration with customers throughout the year.
So if you could look at the last 9 years and
Yeah.
chunk it into phases, like
Oh,
phases of growth.
yeah.
Tell me about what those phases would be like, and what was the barrier that you had to break through to get from one phase to the next.
Yeah. And remember, again, every story is different, right? So I
Hmm.
tell you what we faced. So I was getting ready to launch the company in March of 2020. Kind of remember that month? You remember that year? I was
Hmm.
going to HIMSS, which is a large industry conference, and I was leaving on that Saturday. And on Thursday, the Thursday before the conference, they called the ball and they shut everything down.
Yeah.
So already my journey is tainted from other journeys. Already I've
Hmm.
got what the hell just happened? What is a pandemic? And how long do we think it's going to last, right? And I'm an eternal optimist. I'm like, oh, 3 months it will be out.
Hmm. Yeah.
And some of my board members like 2 years, like it's going to be 2 years, like digging. And so I had to change everything in a split second. And so if I think about phases, one approach is to take what I've learned in the past and say, oh, the first million is a phase, right?
Hmm.
The next million to 5 million is a phase, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 100, right? Those are phases, if you will, that are
Hmm.
fairly well understood. And they're all different. They take different people, they take different strategies, they take different approaches to scaling. But this was a little different. This had this this other layer of phasing. Pandemic. What are you going to do during a pandemic?
Speaking of risk management.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of risk management, post pandemic, what do you do? Because it's like a tsunami or like an earthquake. Like there's the earthquake's bad, but the aftershocks can be even worse. And so, yeah, we had this moment of, the pandemic where we had to rethink everything. But then post pandemic, when we got out and everyone was like, oh, okay, we're out, things are back to normal. Like we had crazy stuff happen, like SVB almost collapsed, right? The
Hmm.
banking. So
Yep.
another phase, right? So
Hmm.
anyway, there's a lot that happens in the course of a company's history that again you can look at it from a phasing of growth, which is fairly well understood. That first $1 million is a different set of things that you sort of have to manage and measure to, right? Minimally viable product, right? That's sort of the first thing you want to work out during your first million. I would posit it's actually probably your first 5 million.
Hmm.
because you could be fooled by getting your first million with a few customers, but still not have minimally viable product because they're early adopters.
Hmm.
And really, when you start getting into the 5 million range, you start to bring in the latter part of the market, right? The early majority, the late majority, right? To
Hmm.
quote Jeffrey Moore here.
Hmm.
But so I don't think it's that black and white. And I think it is different based on everyone's experience. Yeah. When you say, I don't know, how many years did you say? 9 years?
According to my
When you
math,
say
yeah.
9 years, I go, what the hell? Like, that's a long time. I never signed up for 9 years, right? But then I go, well, it wasn't really. I mean, yeah, it was nine, but like I had a year plus of the pandemic, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and of course we were still working through stuff, but it was different, right? Imagine you're ready to launch, you're ready to go to market, you're ready to really start to scale growth, and then boom, everything stops, right? Because that's what happened to us.
Well, and your ICP was in the center of it, right? It
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Oh yeah, not to mention, they're worried about protective patient gear and like surviving. They're
Yeah,
creating 3D masks and things to survive, right? And we're
yeah,
trying to sell them risk management, which is like way down, right?
yeah,
No.
yeah.
So yeah, no, that was. But what we did was, and what I did was, and I was in the process of hiring a go-to-market sales leader, actually. I was literally getting ready to push go on a hire.
Hmm.
And when this happened, the board was like, "Yeah, Ed, you need to keep selling, and you should probably invest in products. Hire someone to help you out on the product side."
Hmm.
Now, for me, that was like, "No, I'm the product guy. I'm the visionary. I'm the product guy.
Hmm.
I don't need anybody right now. I do need someone eventually, but not now. I hate selling. Like I'm not a good salesperson. But like you're a great salesperson." And so after I kind of whined and kind of did my thing, I'm like, and I listened, I'm like, yeah, you know what? They're right. And they were, and I was able to get and hire a product leader who I'd worked with before, who I tried to hire when I first started the company.
Hmm.
And quite frankly, I couldn't afford him and things were going well. So it's all about timing with hires, as you probably know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so, and he's been with me since, knock on wood, right? Because people come and go, and he's been terrific. And we've worked together so well that I can't even imagine having not done that, having not made that decision to do that. So we did make lemonade out of lemons, so to
Hmm.
speak.
Yeah. So you're, I mean, so it just set you back essentially, right?
Yeah, it set
Um,
us back. It set us
yeah,
back a year and a half, roughly.
yeah.
Yeah.
And on the back end of the pandemic, did it increase the value of your solution in a way, right?
Oh no, no, yeah, no,
Or,
great question. Yeah, no, because we invested in product. We did. Here's the other thing we did. So one of the things I was trying to do was, from a product release perspective, I was trying to do every 2 weeks. I was trying to get a train on this ready to go and leave
hmm.
the station every 2 weeks, right?
Hmm.
And not because I thought it was the right thing to do from a frequency perspective, but the vision I had was like because we're purpose built for healthcare, we're not a blank canvas where customers have to customize us.
Hmm.
We've got to, as we get input from the community, we need to release support for those new workflows that they need,
Yeah.
right? So I really wanted to continue to drive product growth, product led growth, if you will, by adding either new capabilities to existing functionality or adding new functionality that added new value, additional value to current customers. So that was something I was working on. I couldn't break the code. Couldn't, my VP of engineering and we worked really hard on it. And then my chief product officer joined, and I'll never forget this. And I said, okay, we got 45 days as a board meeting. At the board meeting, I want you to present your product strategy, like how
Hmm.
you think about the product. And his response was, "What? 45 days? That can't happen. I need to." I go, Why not?" I go, "Well, I need to talk to customers." And he's right. He's got to talk to customers, and that's going to take 30 days in and of itself scheduling meeting. And like he's rambling on. And I said, "Okay, Paul, don't worry about that. Here's why. Because you're going to see we do things very differently than the last time we worked together. So What we do is we talk to customers weekly. Every week, we have conversations with customers every single week. And so jump in and we share calendars. So we have this transparency value, right? For the product and for the behaviors in the company. We share everybody's calendar, including my own. You can see where these customer meetings are and you just jump into the meeting. And now you can talk to customers. Yeah, but he's like, no, you don't understand. He walked away still like, yelling, whatever. 10 days later into it, he comes back. He's like, I, I just talked to like so many customers. Like, this is incredible. He said, I'm going to co-opt those meetings to be part of my design process. I'm like, whatever you want to do, man. And I said, here's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to get this train. I, I think 2, 3 months after he joined, we've been delivering releases every 2 weeks. Now, do we do 26 releases a year? No, we do probably 22, 24.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing it since he joined the company in 2020. So to me, again, because that wasn't the playbook I had last time, or actually, I'd never done that in any other company. This was new.
Hmm.
Again, but if you think unconstrained, you do things that are completely different and add value and leverage to your organization.
So if you were giving advice to somebody, to Ed, 9 years ago, a guy coming out of a successful, enterprise growth story and an IPO and
Mm,
thinking about what they're going to do next, and the wife's kicking them in the butt and saying, "Hey, go
mm.
do something, go start something." Um, in today's environment, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. No one sells the product and vision better than the CEO. Nobody in the company, unfortunately. And I really one of the mistakes I made early on was I thought, wow, we're doing great. This is easy. All I need to do is hire a sales VP to scale this thing. We'll be at $20 million next week.
Hmm.
And the reality is, um, that's that is not the reality. That's the reality. And so it's hard to sell. It's probably one of the hardest jobs, I think. And so it's natural for me to sell because it's all in my head. I don't need a discovery document I don't need to understand the questions to ask from a discovery perspective.
Hmm.
I don't need to understand the value of the product because I'm building it. Like, so all of this stuff has to be then transferred, right? And someone has to understand it in a way that enables them to convince a buyer, a customer, that there's enough value there to pay us money, right?
Hmm.
And and it's really hard for hiring even a sales leader, right? And there's a difference between a sales leader that can come into a company at $50 million in ARR and a sales leader that's coming into a company with $1 million in ARR. A complete difference, right? And I
Yeah.
know that. I mean, fundamentally,
Yeah.
intellectually, I know that. I
Hmm.
mean, it, a great book for anyone to read is The Hard Thing About Hard Things. I always recommend it. I've
Oh, it's.
I've read it probably every year since I started the
Mhm.
company. And I always go back and go, "Oh yeah, I made that mistake. I made that mistake. I made that mistake. I made that mistake."
Mhm.
So you could read the book, but if you don't apply the thinking to actual reality, or at least consider it in how how you make decisions, like you end up wasting time. And
Yeah.
and it's not that these are bad people, it's just a bad fit, right?
Right.
I always say that the people around the table today may not be the people around the table tomorrow, including myself,
Mhm.
because we all have to evolve to support the needs of the company as the company evolves, right? The needs of the company change over time, and they will change over time. They should change over time. And therefore, as leaders, if you're not ready to lead that change, or at least hurry up and catch up and participate in that change, you're not gonna make it. It's just a bad fit, right? And so that's a hard thing to do because you have people that start with you from the beginning, and they're good people,
Mhm.
and eventually they miss that. Somehow they hear the words like I read the book, but they miss the story, they miss the lesson
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the words, right? They
Yeah.
didn't apply it. And so, that they unfortunately they're not part of the journey anymore. So that's a hard thing as an entrepreneur too, because you sort of have to, I don't ever want to lose that feeling or that emotion of losing people, good people, but you also have to learn how to compartmentalize it. See,
Yeah.
easy for me to say, right?
Yeah.
Compartmentalize it some way because it's hard to carry that with you too, right? Like I talked about the past, like you reflect on the past, but you have to be moving forward always.
So no good podcast would be complete without asking this question.
Okay.
So we'll end on this one, which is artificial intelligence, AI,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the topic of the day and tomorrow and yesterday. How do you view it from an opportunities and a threat
Yeah.
standpoint in the Censinet sort of terms?
Yeah, well, opportunities. I jumped on it day one. Like when I saw what Dolly could do, and I saw what OpenAI could do, ChatGPT. I'm like, in fact, I did a podcast where I hardwired it. Not now, it's a lot easier to do, but I literally interviewed ChatGPT as part of the podcast because I
Mm,
think no one had done it at the time, and I thought it was interesting, but it was also learning for me as well about what the limitations were of AI. But we jumped on it right away, and but 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 you've got to kind of take a step back, and you've got to sort of look at it in terms of strategy and application, right?
mhm,
Which it's a technology, it's a tool. What's the strategy with it? How are you going to actually apply it to your business? And what we did, given our business, was we talked about a couple scenarios, and we're like, we can't bolt it on, like it can't just be bolted onto our platform, and we can't create something new, net new,
mhm,
because what's the point, right?
mhm,
So we said day one, build it in architecturally, build it in at the infrastructure level. And so we started that journey. We partnered with AWS.
mhm.
We actually were using we were using AWS, but we were also using a different core platform. And we migrated entirely to AWS at that time. So we went
Okay.
through a whole migration period and process. And we also, and so the fundamental principle was strategically was we had to be secure by design because our customers required it.
Mhm,
And but more importantly, we had to be secure by default. And what that means to us and to customers is it's part of the infrastructure, but it's not enabled.
mhm,
It's secure by default by being turned off. You as a customer, based on your journey, based on your AI committee and your process for governance, you can start to use it when you're ready, and we're gonna be full disclosure as always about what how we secure it, or how we don't secure it, right, where the risks are, etc. And then you can make an educated decision, or you can build remediations ultimately at the enterprise level to deal with that. But for the most part, we're self-contained. We don't share data. We don't train data. Like we're not, we don't do anything offshore. Everything's onshore, right? So for us, we had to be secure by design, secure by default. And that's really played out well in the customer base. And customers can take, all the capabilities, 179. We don't care. Like it's just knobs. We turn them on and activate them for you.
yeah, interesting. And that AWS sort of development programs, a lot of people are taking advantage of those, and it's a
It's
great
great.
strategy on their
No, it
part.
really
An
is. It
amazing
really is.
strategy.
The other thing we did strategically, and I don't hear many people talking about this, but the other thing we said was I literally challenged the company. I'm like, everyone needs to use AI, and this is like a couple of years ago. Everyone needs to use AI in their function, and
Mhm,
not only use it, but we need to talk about it. We need to share stories. How's it working? How's it not working? Right? And then we need to figure out what our tool strategy is for internal use and all that. Right? So we
mhm,
worked that out really pretty soon from the release of ChatGPT. The other thing we did was we held groups accountable. If they didn't make changes and they then became impediments, if you will, we changed things. We restructured the way we did things
mhm,
to
yeah.
take advantage of AI in our processes. Because, my development team, I mean, I don't want to say what they just told me in terms of productivity because, but their productivity they're getting is incredible
Yeah.
out of Claude AI and Claude Code and everything else that's available and everything else that'll be coming and be here next year.
Mm.
It's so rapidly changing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
anyway, that's how we've addressed it.
Great. No, super interesting. Ed, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, hearing the journey,
Yeah,
through all of the, the fits and starts and follies.
yeah.
Congratulations on where you've gotten
Thanks,
the
Jeff.
company to today, and best of luck, right,
Thank you,
as
Jeff.
you drive it forward. We'll have to have you on in a year, and you can tell
Yeah,
us
I'd love
about,
that.
how you've slayed more dragons,
Okay.
with Censinet,
More poems published too.
and more poems published, more dead concerts attended.
There you go. Oh, well, let's hope so.
All right. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.